Well, that's our first conversation this morning. It's been 2 weeks, and of course, that countdown took place, and this is where we are now. Well, all of the recommendations and everything you want to find there, but then some other information will come to us later. Just to quickly notify you that we understand that we've recorded, Nigeria has recorded its first case of the dreaded Omicron variant of coronavirus, COVID-19, but more details of that will come on later on. But to the conversation at hand, let's invite two gentlemen with us this morning, joining us to have this conversation. First, we bring you Additional Ogunlana, who is a legal practitioner and lawyer to ENDSARS campaigners. He's also former chairman of the Nigeria Bar Association in Ikeja. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Good morning. And we also have with us Bros Oshoma, who is a legal practitioner. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure, Ayo.
Well, Mr. Additional, the white paper has been released. 32 recommendations in the report. The state government accepts 11, 6 with modifications, 14 out of its own purview sent to the federal government, and 1 rejected outrightly. Excuse me. And that's, I believe, from only 1 report. What's your take on that one, first of all?
Well, thank you so much. I too heard that news late yesterday evening. I've just been getting snippets, not really the full report as it were, but the summary about the ones accepted, the one not accepted, or accepted with modification, and then the one sent over to the federal government, being stated as being outside the purview of the powers of the state government to implement, and one rejected. Well, what I would say is this, on the surface, it's fair enough. You have 32, you have 11 fully accepted, you have 6 also accepted, but with modification, that will give you 17. You have 14 sent over to the federal government to consider.
That's not a rejection.
That's not rejection. So 1 is rejected. Well, it will appear to me that the government of Lagos State is just, with due respect to the governor or the head of the state, that is Mr. Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, is trying to, a little to the right, a little to the left, as Yoruba people will say, "Shoto sosi, ma barinje." They are trying to please everybody. I mean, a balancing act. But to the extent of, if what I've read so far is correct, to the extent of the government emphatically rejecting a finding of a massacre, I do not agree with the government. And I think the reasons given are not good or strong enough.
You think so? Because, excuse me, earlier in the day, yesterday, the governor gave a speech and said that it's all going to be based on truth. But then he also said in the findings that in the response to the white paper, look, that even in the report of the panel, there were no hard evidence to confirm that indeed there were so many bodies. You said you attended, so why
I do not, with due respect to the governor, you see, I do not agree with him, even though I'm not surprised that his government has decided to take this tack. I'm not surprised because, like I pointed out earlier, not today, that the idea of set up a white paper to review a report in itself is a system shield. There is a jurisprudence behind that. But because our systems are borrow ropes, Yoruba people say that if you borrow a rope and dress yourself up, It's either it will tighten you in the neck or it will be too short in the knees, as it were, you know. That's what has happened. There's a jurisprudence. The idea of when you have a report and then there will be a kind of review suggests accountability, responsibility, you know, on the part of the government. Because if you look at it, you are the government assess of a white paper, what do you call it, a panel of inquiry. the panel has labored and interacted actually with people who cared to come out as witnesses, whether summoned or otherwise, and all that. And then they've come out with a report. The idea of reviewing itself is not that it's bad. But because it is the government again, the initiator, the appointer, that is again reviewing, this time exclusively by its own agents and all that, you'll find out that at the level of our political development, of maturity, that idea of just being purely objective is still not yet ripe.
Okay, let me take the comments of Mr. Oshoma on this. You've read the report, I hope. You have also seen the response of government, the white paper, and all of that.
Yes.
What's your own position on this?
Yeah, Ayo, I need us to understand that first and foremost, like my learned colleague has said, if government accepts 36 out of 37, that's an A+, in my opinion. But the bone of contention here is the issue of was there massacre or no massacre. I will get to that shortly, but we also need to understand that the panel was cloaked in two functions, two judicial functions. That one is the quasi-judicial and then also investigative robe. And we all know as lawyers that prosecution starts from investigation. And even police, when they conclude investigation, their investigation is subjected to the Ministry of Justice, who will look at it with the eagle eye vis-a-vis the provisions of the law, whether a prima facie case has been established on the basis of the investigation made. So as, like we all know, that it is better for 99 accused persons to go scot-free than one innocent person to be convicted for a crime he did not commit. So against that backdrop, it is also pertinent to note that normally at the High Court or at the Magistrate Court, the judge sits to listen to the witnesses, the demeanor of witnesses, and then give a verdict one way or the other. But at the appellate level, the judges of the appeal court are not seized of that privilege of interacting with the witnesses. But they look at the records and take a decision one way or the other. And so, the people that did a disservice to the report are those people that actually leaked the report. And when I am an apostle of change, and I did a video on ENDSARS, which I said we are all SARS. And I was expecting that the panel would reveal truly the truth of what transpired. But when I read the report, the leaked report, I told myself, I said, I pray that this is not what was submitted to the government. Because if this is what is submitted to the government, the contradictions, the errors were too manifest for a discerning mind to swallow hook, line, and sinker.
Are you then expecting the government
and quickly,
to... Just one second.
Ayo.
On that same issue, just before you go on, are you then suggesting that the government should release the original white paper that was sent to it?
The document, that's why...
The report.
That is why I'm giving you snippets. And so, in the government rejection of that recommendations, quickly, if you permit me, the government said the evidence of the pathologist, Professor Bafuwa, that only 3 bodies that he conducted post-mortem examination on were from Lekki and only 1 had gunshot injury. And this was not debunked. The state, the findings of 9 deaths at the Lekki toll gate on 20th of October is even more baffling because apart from listing out their names in that form at page 297 to 298, the Judicial Panel of Inquiry offered no explanation regarding circumstances of their death. The names simply sprang up at page 297 to 298 of the report without any justification. Also, it is quite astonishing that in the list of 11 deaths set at that same page, the names Kolade Salam, Folorusho Olabisi at number 37 and 34 appear twice. Furthermore, the person listed as Nathaniel Solomon, who testified as a witness and petitioned the panel in respect of his brother, who allegedly died, himself was listed as dead on the 20th. Nathaniel Solomon's brother, Abata Solomon, was also listed as number 2 on the list. So I think with all of this manifest inconsistency, that's why I'm saying that the panel should have sat down to do a thorough job on their report so as to give, not to give room for such recommendations from the government, because against the backdrop of the fact that that definitely somebody else will review this document, you don't make such manifest error.
Okay.
And quite quickly on the last note, the government also stated, which I also believe, that you jettison the evidence of a pathologist that was before you and then rely on hearsay evidence of a video of one Olakule that was not before you. So as a lawyer, really, and for me as a discerning Nigerian, these are some of the things I look at and I tell myself, the panel actually did a disservice to that fact.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Ogunlana.
Well, I must, with due respect, disagree in part a lot with my learned friend, because I'm not sure he participated. I did. And he's taking the governor's, or let me say the government's statement today.
Allow him, Mr. Oshoma.
No problem.
He's taking it hook, line, and sinker as if it's the only rate that is gospel truth. That is not true. In fact, when he referred to Professor Obafunwa, the pathologist, you understand, did he even know the history that led to Obafunwa's statement and what context Obafunwa was speaking? The records of 99 people were presented. But as bodies recovered, these are bodies recovered by government agencies, but all over the state, not just Lekki. That out of these 99, 3 were said to be from Lekki. And out of all the 3 were dead. Out of the 3, they say 2 died of blunt injuries and everything. And then 1 was perforated by a projectile. That is the evidence by the pathologist. That is not the only person who came to give evidence. There are a whole lot of people that gave evidence, especially eyewitnesses' account. If I believe my learned friend does not really know the details like I know, and I'm sure that it cannot be, it is not the position that, the only evidence of death before that panel was the only one of Professor Obafunwa.
But the issues that have been raised, a number of people have also raised it, that, did you also see gaps in the...
No, I'm coming to that. I said, in part, there's areas I agree with him. Okay. And I understand the reason for it. And it's unfortunate that you have a situation where you see people take advantage of a situation they create. And in this respect, I'm referring to the government of Lagos. I believe that report is not tidy enough. It's not 100% tidy. And this is why I agree with him that in the case of Solomon Abuta and others, incidentally, these were my clients. So I knew, to the extent that Abuta, as Nathaniel Solomon, was the one who gave evidence about his brother, and credible evidence that was not faulted. And if that is not the person said to have died under Obafunwa, he gave evidence about his brother who died, who was shot, and I was picked up at 9 p.m. by himself and his sister and all those kind of a thing. But Nathaniel Solomon did not die. You understand? And why all this happened is this. When we were at that panel, my side of legal representation to answer something continue to insist that this panel being twin-headed is overworked. The time is not enough. The panel itself allowed itself to be railroaded into just working with it very, very tight. You are handling matters of SARS brutality, the normal ones. At the same time, you are the one handling the one of Lekki investigation. I think a week ago, about 10 days ago, my learned friend, the senior advocate who go for government himself, now said, oh, I thought part of the mistake of government was not to have separated these panels. But before the panel, he did not maintain that position. The position is that the time is good enough, the time is good enough. I blame the panel for knowing, like he said, if you know you are going to be reviewed, you should have insisted that, look, this time is simply not enough. In fact, we are the only side complaining that this time is not enough. And so when he mentioned about Abuta, that's a good point, but it's not enough. Even the issue of duplication of names, 2 names, you know, when you say 11 names, when you review, yeah, and you look at these obvious slips, I mean, Karim, not 2 different people. So,
no, I just wanted to, because...
and then finally, I want to say, and that if other sources of information come before the panel about deaths, yeah, you look at the probative value. It's not so the government was wrong in saying that, oh, they rated some other evidence about death more than the the pathologists. Pathologists did not say that only 3 people. They said all the bodies brought to us.
Okay, all right, Mr. Oshoma.
Yeah,
there is the responsibility of hard evidence, but then there is the responsibility of eyewitnesses.
Yeah.
It would seem like the law has a tough task of verifying eyewitnesses as opposed to hard evidence.
Exactly. And so for me, I don't, not being a member of the panel, and so many other people who are not members of the panel, what we will rely on will be the reports coming from the panel. And so if the report coming from the panel is filled up with inconsistencies, and thank God my learned colleague had admitted that the panel had a two-handed, a hydra-headed function.
We'll come to the second part, because it would seem like everyone is looking at just this one report, but yeah, while the other one has some value to it. But speak to the issue of evidence versus eyewitnesses. How do we confirm eyewitness accounts in law, for instance? Because it would seem like right now there are more eyewitness evidences than hard evidence.
No, when you talk about hard evidence and eyewitnesses account, the only document we will consistently refer to will be the report. If you look at the content of the report, if you look at the content, the conclusions reached, the panel, the evidence, I raised the evidence of a hearsay evidence of Olakunle, a video that the panel also relied on to say that on the basis of this testimony from this video, that so and so persons died. So all of that, when you do that, you're creating doubt in your own report, that anybody that reads it would find missing link. That's why consistently I have blamed the panel for not doing a tidy job. If, like he has said, Lagos State government wanted to look for loopholes. The panel created those loopholes for Lagos State government. That's basically simply what I'm saying here. You're talking about eyewitnesses. Some of the eyewitnesses said they couldn't come out because they were scared. Others that came out quickly, if you look at the report also, the eyewitnesses that came out relied on evidence of also other persons that were not there. I am quoting the content of the report. I'm not talking about what transpired at the panel. I'm talking about the content of the report. If unfortunately my phone is not here, I just read snippet from the recommendations that I have, I would have also, point page by page to you because I read it. That's why I said the disservice to this job was done by those that leaked the report, not me.
Well, the issue is not whether a report was leaked or not. With due respect to my learned friend, you see, the point is that the Lagos State government, by its governor, by his
Trust. How then do we put this to rest? Because it will seem like even with this white paper of government, the issue is anything but resolved in the hearts of the people.
I quite agree with you. It's ironic that the government or the governor who speaks about trust deficit himself is suffering from that particular deficit. The white paper that was released has even heated up the polity more. Because when you look, I listened to him, I read his speech yesterday. It was quite fine English, fine verse, and I must appreciate the script writer and all that. But the impact, there was very little sympathy with the people. You know, you just like, let me put a very simple example. You know, you're on the road, you're on your right, and unfortunately, something happened with a bicyclist or a bike rider and all that kind of a thing, you know. Now, what is important is somebody is injured. You understand? If you are a good person, if you're a humane person, it's not a matter of, oh, well, you cause it yourself and then you move on. You want to address that situation. You want to, because you want to, who is the aggrieved person? Even in our domestic relations, if you're a sensible husband or wife, you sometimes you say sorry, even when you are right, because you follow the African pattern of trying to do community relation.
So that's what you are recommending to
what you find out from this part, the people, of course, the people, the injured party, nobody said at Lekki that military died. Nobody said at Lekki that police died. Nobody said that Lekki, anybody's property was burnt.
Yeah, that's not to say that that didn't happen to them in other parts of the state.
No, that is not what I'm saying.
Okay.
What I'm saying, you know, we are talking about Lekki investigation, and it is specific to that location. And I'll still come to the other ones that happened, because we shouldn't change the narrative. We are talking of the ENDSARS riot that was terminated brutally that day, violently by the security forces, the military in particular. Now, what I'm trying to say is that when he came up with the idea of a peace work, like he said, the youths have responded. We are talking, asking of justice. We are talking of peace work. He mentioned some names. I've spoken to two of them. They said one, nobody discussed that with them. Then to say who, me, work with him. Macaroni make a parody of this. Shimputi made a parody of it. Falana and the junior made a parody of it, call it a sick joke or something. And you could see that this idea, okay, for example, you say there's no massacre, but that's your report, that's your white paper, did not say indeed there was violence. I mean, that's fair admission. Then, in fact, there is unwarranted violence. And you should go on to say, oh, that even as at the time you are even enforcing whatever you are enforcing or preventing whatever you are preventing, the people at that gate, at that toll gate, were peaceful, were non-violent, and it was before the hours of the curfew. There was nothing like that. So, and that they did not provoke the attack.
Even though he referenced it earlier and said that it was largely peaceful, even he himself was there.
No, I'm not talking of. I'm talking of the 28th. Up to 28th, I mean, it was nothing. But that 28th, this is part of healing. You know, I know that, in fact, let me tell you, as a council appearing for this ENDSARS people, it was despite opposition within the House. They said, one, the panel cannot bring any positive report indicting government. Then two, if ever it happens, the government is never going to accept a report indicting it. I said we'll push forward. As far as we are concerned, government has lived up to its traditional reputation of not being accountable to the people. You just say there's no massacre, but at the same time you say at least one person died. You understand? And I'll give you another example of person that I know died, that was my client and all that. But you are
by the definition of massacre, well, those instances you mentioned do not meet the
massacre means 1 million people should die?
No, massacre means a large number of people.
The dictionary
is quite clear.
No. no. You see,
Is there a different definition of massacre
okay, even
in law?
just a minute, please. Even assume so by your definition.
No, it's a dictionary.
Hold on. Even by that your own understanding of the dictionary meaning, it will mean that 9 people. Assuming the government will accept the 9 people or accept 11 people.
Well,
will you say 11 people out of a crowd of about 5,000 people or 3,000 that night will be large?
I am not making a case. Mr. Ogunlana, just a second,
okay.
just to be clear.
Okay.
I'm not making any case for anyone. I'm just speaking to the word massacre, an indiscriminate and brutal slaughter of many people. That's what the dictionary says. A simple Google search will tell you that one. If we look at...
just a minute. When you say many, the issue now, maybe I'm talking as a linguist and as a lawyer, what is many? What is many to you?
Cambridge Dictionary, an act of killing a lot of people.
Yes.
That's a massacre. And the example is this. He ordered the massacre of 2,000 women and children.
Oh, thank you so much. So
that's Cambridge Dictionary.
Let me react now.
Okay, go ahead.
That Cambridge Dictionary, that says even if 200 people had been killed, it's not a massacre now. That's nonsense. Just a minute, please. That is nonsense definition.
Well, let's
if it means 2,000, that means 200 people.
Well, I guess law has to give us a different definition of massacre. We'll take a short break, gentlemen, to take a few messages, and when we return, we'll continue this conversation. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Mr. Adeshina Ogunlana, as well as Liberal Oshoma, both legal practitioners, are still here with us. Well, Mr. Ogunlana, you participated in the panel sittings for quite a while. My apologies. Let's switch gears to the next issue. So, the second report, we don't seem to be talking too much about that one, which is the crux of the matter, the real reason that government set up the panels in the first place, cases of police brutality and all of that. How significant do you see whatever report or white paper comes from government on that one? How significantly do you see it healing?
Well, thank you. And I was there. I want to appreciate the panel and the government that funded that panel and provided the funds, unlike some other states where their own problem of stagnation is not because of anything other than there were not enough money to empower them to do their work. You know, in Lagos there was reasonable funding in respect of that, and you have to appreciate the government for that. Even before then, you remember that the government of Lagos, as Mr. Governor himself said yesterday, had actually given money, or funds rather, to police personnel who suffered losses or who died and all that. I mean, I think 10 million or 20 million and this kind of thing. So one thing we take away from that aspect is that actually that panel did so well for the ordinary human being vis-a-vis compensation, evaluation of compensation and compensation to affected people brutalized much better than the Nigerian court system. The Nigerian court system has a problem. Despite all the delays, after you might have won your case in court, in brutality matters and everything, my learned friend will attest to that very readily, that you hardly get the compensation. There will be a lot of blockage, police simply will not pay, there will be a lot of things. So to the extent that, in fact, this kind of a special tribunal should now be created to, especially Lagos, you know, we are the densest in terms of population. About now, governor says it's 22 million. I read that yesterday. I thought it was 20, but this is 22. Where is the governor? Should know better. With 22 million people, and with only 55 or 60 high courts that we have in Lagos for the state high court, maybe 23 at the federal level, it's grossly inadequate. If there's a panel that can quickly evaluate, you know, the issues of brutality, actually, abuses, generally, they are not so difficult to prove. So I would say that really a lot of people, there are people that shed tears of joy, even though there are people who mourned that, well, this money given, especially when people died, that cannot really replicate the lives of their dead ones, but it's still better than nothing. I appreciate the government in that respect. I appreciate the panel. Like I said, about 420 million was given. Somebody may say it's paltry, because when you go to High Court, they may give even 500 million, 100 million on paper. In actuality, sorry, in actuality, you are just seeing it. Okay. You will never touch it. So to that extent, I think kind of state institution or a special agency for human rights abuses, of course, not to take away from what my learned friend has said about the retraining of the police, like the panel itself. We have been saying that all along.
But you also, how about the part where, you know, the protesters were asking for a complete overhaul of the welfare system for the police? What are some of those recommendations made on that one?
You see, I remember ACP Dubono. That's the head of operations police in Lagos, who came to testify. We had a chat after the something, and the gentleman was saying, ordinarily, why should we all be opposed to what these people are saying? They are talking about better welfare for us. You see, when you give somebody the power of arrest and you harm him in a very poor economy like this, the tendency as a human being to survive by abusing his power is high. I think the police are not only personally paid poor salaries. There is a deliberate sabotage of the police by the Nigerian state. Do you know, I've evaluated this as a lawyer. Why do the police tend to torture? You may easily say, oh, they just like violence. No. Do you know why they torture? They want to extract evidence by force. Why? Because of absence of almost nothing about forensics. Meanwhile, when you confront a criminal, no matter how doing, with forensic evidence, the man, like when the police cracked the case in Festac.
Do you think that the panel report addressed that, these concerns that you have raised? I'll come to you, Mr.
Well, I think they said the welfare, they recommended it, okay. But the retrain is there too. But I'm not too sure whether this point I'm making. Okay. The police of Nigeria is working with severe handicap.
Okay. Well, Mr. Oshoma, same questions concerning the real issue, the real reasons for which the panel was set up. You wanted to talk about it earlier, that cases of police brutality and all of that. Yeah. Do you see the panel doing justice to that part, the report, and the expectations of the people from the white paper?
Yes, to answer your question directly, yes, I was quite happy, which is why I also believe the position of my learned friend that we ought to have had 2 panels and not one. One specifically for the Lekki Tollgate issue, and then the other one on human rights violations and police brutality generally. And so that's why you see this argument back and forth. Why some people are in a hurry to establish that there was massacre at Lekki. The government also is in a hurry to say there was no massacre, and they completely left out the other issues that will lead to healing. That said, you also agree that Nigerian police, apart from this extracting evidence by force, there's what they call the return system in the Nigerian police. The police is largely underfunded. As at about 2 years ago, I think the IG of police cried out that of the police total budget, only 20% was released. And that 20% was not even enough. You find out that the average policeman, quote me, the average police station in Nigeria earns 15,000 naira monthly as impressed. And that is if you see the money. The day you complain as a police DPO, they'll tell you you're tired of your job. So what now happens is,
so that seems to indicate, Mr. Oshoma, that it would seem like, you know, there is no end in sight to the issues that arose in the first place.
There is no end in sight to it. I can tell you that there's no end in sight to it. This we're talking about recommendations now, and the Lagos State government, mind you, over the weekend, right on this station, a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, even though he was expressing his own opinion, also queried the legality and the constitutionality of the state government to set up, the panel. And now the recommendations had been made to the federal government agencies. And the governor has said, I'm going to take those recommendations to the federal government, even though the spokesperson of the federal government has said we will implement the part that concerns us. But it is obvious that our police system, go to the barracks, and that's why I was talking about this return system. So a situation where DPO does not have money to run the station. So he will rely on the boys, and the boys will rely on you and I. And, in most cases, you extract this money by compulsion. And when you are sent out with guns to make money for and on behalf of the station, you also want to make money for yourself. So that's what led to all of these right abuses. And there is no enforcement mechanism for abuses. And like we said, do you think, my apologies,
do you think the Human Rights Committee that is also proposed in the report would help solve this issue?
I think to a large extent it will, if the federal government is interested and involved in it.
Okay.
Because you also agree that the police, the state governor does not command the police commissioner.
And so that's why he has also sent those recommendations.
Exactly. So
just a second, because we have to begin a round-off now. So, Mr. Oshoma, how optimistic are you that the 14 recommendations that the governor promised to refer to the federal government, how optimistic are you that something will be done at the federal level?
Unfortunately, we are in a government that a lot of things are left undone, even though those that have been promised to be done, including those that have been promised to be done. So that's why I'm not optimistic that anything would be done. We're back to where we were just before the protest. And also,
Mr. Oshoma, I'm sorry, we really have to round.
No, quickly, a few seconds, please, quickly.
10 seconds.
Yes, 10 seconds. Like I said, it is not enough for the state governor to call out people on a march. Let him start actually by healing the process, identifying and admitting that indeed a lot of things went wrong. And then once you begin to correct those things, people ordinarily will go out and say, yes, we trust this government.
All right, okay.
I want to march with
yes, sir. How optimistic are you?
Not optimistic at all.
Okay.
All promises cancelled.
let's get it done. Well, Mr. Additional Ogunlana is a legal practitioner and counsel to the ENDSARS campaigners. He is also former chairman of Nigerian Bar Association Ikeja branch, as well as Libra Oshoma, who is a legal practitioner. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time this morning. Sunrise Daily continues right after now with another issue. Do stay with us.